right. Well, we are all friends, so let's go ahead and jump in and have this conversation. I can't thank you enough for joining this morning. I'm so excited to see you all. I'm so excited that, the Life Transformative Education Initiative is moving forward, and that we're able to bring, the speaker series to you all on a regular basis. We've had great people, Dr. Tuitt. We have great people right now on this panel today, who I'll introduce shortly. We will have some more great people moving forward. And you should all know that you should not hesitate to send myself or Amanda Pitts, Sarah Crocher, Jennifer Lee Butts, or Tom Scheinfeld. Yes, I did call you out and say, if you have some thoughts about who you'd love to see come and be in this conversation, don't hesitate to drop us an email, right? We're always ready to have that conversation. But today, specifically, we want to focus on what we should always be focusing on, which is the fact that the level of intellectual and care and passion for our students is happening in ways right here at our university, in more ways than we can even begin to imagine. So today is just an inkling, right, of our colleagues and the work that they are doing in support of our students, and it's exciting. And I have said since coming into this position that when I first heard about LTE, I thought this thing is like I don't know, it's too big for me to wrap my head around. But what I will say, working with everybody in the core team, on the task force, and in the working groups, is that we are close. We are so close, everybody. We are so much closer than we think we are. We're just figuring out now how to connect those dots. Like, what are the best vehicles to drive from this dot to that dot? What's the best vehicle to get us from Kansas to Pennsylvania? Because they're already there. Those states already exist. We just got to make that. We got to make that connection. 7 degrees of separation between people, and even less between the initiatives that are already happening on this campus and the ways that we are going to move this initiative forward. So I'm heartened and excited, and just feeling really good to be here. It is Friday. That's fine. We're gonna do some stuff on Friday. So first of all, welcome everybody. Great that you are here. I'm gonna give you just a quick run of the show, introduce our panelists for the day, and then we're gonna jump right in. So let me pull that up really quickly. You don't need to know about the tech check, but I guess I just told you about the tech check. You weren't here for the tech check, but it was a great tech check, just so you know. I'm doing my introduction right now. We're just going to give you this run of the show, introduce the panelists. The panelists already have prompts that they're going to be dealt with, which are really about their work in transformational learning and relationship building with our students, as mentor and mentee. Our speakers are going to talk for approximately 10 minutes a piece, and I know they'll be good about that. You get down to the last person, you want to make sure they have their 10 minutes, and so we want to make sure that happens. I'd say around 10 o'clock we'll do a 5-minute stretch. In the theater, we say make sure your feet are rooted to the earth. Get up and press yourself into the earth. Reconnect with your body. Little coffee break, little whatever kind of break you might need at that particular point in time. And then we're going to come back and go into some breakout sessions. We'll have a number of sessions, and our panelists will actually rotate through the sessions. So you get to that session, you won't be kicked out and kicked back in, or kicked out and kicked back in. We'll just move the panelists through that sessions. And it's really an open forum for your questions and your thoughts, and gaining some additional knowledge, or maybe some more in-depth knowledge about some of the things that our panelists have talked about. We're going to bring you back with about 15 minutes left in the day at about 10:45. Our colleague Professor Tom Scheinfeld will close us out for the day, and then we will go on to Toy Story or whatever else that we got going on today. So that's a pretty quick run of the show, just to kind of give you an idea where you are. And I'm going to go ahead right now and just introduce a little bit of a bio of all of our panelists, and then we're gonna jump right in, right? So first we have Professor Fiona Vernal. Vernal. Are you here, Professor? I just don't want to say your name wrong.
Yes, vernal like the equinox.
Vernal like the equinox. I dig that. So it may forever be Doug. Love Jones, circa 1989. I don't know what you know about that. So Professor Vernal is a native of Trelawney, Jamaica, grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. She earned her BA in history with a certificate in African American studies from Princeton University in 1995, and her MA and PhD from Yale. After completing her doctoral work in December 2003, she served as Director of Africana Studies at Kalamazoo College, Kalamazoo, Michigan, for those of you who are not familiar. Since 2005, she has taught at the University of Connecticut's Department of History, where her courses focus on pre-colonial and colonial Africa, the history of South Africa, slavery, and the African diaspora. Her book, The Farmerfeld Mission, published by Oxford 2012, explores the relationship between African Christian converts, European missionaries, and the politics of land access, land alienation, and the civilizing mission of African soil and economic improvement in 19th century South Africa. Woo, there's like 15 books in that topic right there, Professor Vernal. All right. Dr. Vernal consults with the Connecticut Historical Society on oral history projects, including an exhibit documenting and recording the impact of 9/11 on Connecticut victims, families, and first responders. Welcome. So good to have you here this morning. Julia Yakovich, I hope I got that name right. Please correct me if I did not. Great to meet you this morning. Fantastic. Welcome, welcome. Julia directs service learning and engagement initiatives for the University of Connecticut. In this role, she's able to integrate her professional experiences in education to incorporate meaningful service learning coursework and projects for both the university and the community at large, not for nonprofit, government entities, and business ventures alike. Julia ensures efficient and effective incorporation of service learning curricular strategies between university and partner stakeholders for mutually beneficial and sustainable relationships. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome this morning. Professor Oscar Guerra is an Emmy. Whoa. Let me start that again. Did I say Emmy? I said Emmy. Is an Emmy award-winning director, researcher, and educator. He's an assistant professor of film and video at the University of Connecticut here. Glad to have you. His focus is storytelling and promotes critical thinking and social investment. He aims to produce media that provides a way for underrepresented groups to share and disseminate counter stories, contradict dominant and potentially stereotypical narratives, and strengthen their voices and identities. Dr. Guerra's career spans the spectrum of television, environments, music, multimedia production, documentaries for social change, promotional videos, immersive media, and vast international experience. Welcome, welcome. Giants, one and all. Did I not tell you that earlier? Giants. Dr. Carolyn McGuire is the director of the Office of Undergraduate Research. Dr. McGuire is always available to talk with faculty members and undergraduates about anything to do with undergraduate research and or hours, programs and services, OUR, programs and services. Dr. McGuire majored in French as an undergraduate at Princeton University and completed her doctorate in education, reading, writing, and literacy in parentheses at the University of Pennsylvania. Her research focused on the nature of young children's discussions of the visual and verbal elements of picture books, which my grandson loves, and the influence of these experiences on their development as readers and writers. She managed several academic departments and graduate programs at the University of California, Irvine, before coming to the snow, or should I say the University of Connecticut. So welcome, welcome one and all. I think we're about ready to jump in. I hope I didn't take too long. I can see Amanda giving me that look, but you got you have to know who's here having this conversation with you.
Hey, one more, Steve Zinn. We got to do one more introduction.
You know what? I dropped Steve Zinn a bio when I copied the bios, but I know Steve. Dr. Zinn, here it is. Forgive me, Steve. Dr. Zinn grew up in Southern New York and received his BS in animal science from Cornell University. He then worked as a research coordinator at the Cornell Dairy Teaching and Research Unit for 2.5 years. After that, he received his MS and doctorate degrees in animal science from Michigan State University. Steve, you have been at every university in the country, have you not? Following completion of a postdoc at the Worcester Foundation for Experimental Biology, he joined the faculty of animal science at the University of Connecticut in 1990. So Steve, forgive me for leaving you off the back end of that. You know I got love for you, brother. So count it to my head and not my heart. It's so good to have everybody here this morning. And I will have to say, quite honestly, it was an early conversation with Professor Zinn, Dr. Zinn, that prompted me to think deeply about what's already happening here and our need to celebrate and accentuate the work that's already happening here. So I just want to give a double shout out to Dr. Zinn to say thank you, right, for pressing me on that. All right, I think we're ready to start.
Okay, Dr. Vernal, you are first up.
Good morning. Mike, I'm going to blame this on you. You think I don't know about Love Jones? I was going to marry Lawrence Tate, and he is among the line of husbands that's going to move me to Hollywood. So if you guys hear that Taye Diggs or Idris Elba or Denzel Washington is still available, you'll know why I left UConn. So good morning. Sorry for the insider Love Jones joke. For those of you who don't know Love Jones, great movie. You should check it out. I thought that the best way for me to capture issues of agency and identity and purpose at UConn and what LTE represents is to bring my students along with me so that they could tell you in their own words, because everybody's an expert in their own experience. And so I've brought 5 students along, so please forgive the time. They're going to take 2 minutes each to jump right in and let you guys know. They'll be with us for the first hour, and then you guys can follow up with me because I'll be here for the duration. And so we are going to start with Malachi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malachi Bridges, and I'm a senior at the University of Connecticut. I double major in Africana Studies and Political Science. When I first met Dr. Vernal, it was at Accepted Students Day. And I come from an urban town. I come from New Haven, Connecticut. Come from a small school as well. So when I came up here, you can imagine how different it was for me. So many people all in one place. Kind of gave me anxiety back then, but especially with COVID now. Yeah, so I came and I met her. I remember I saw her and I was just so amazed. And I was so proud. And then we had, started speaking and talking, and I was headstrong on being a political science and secondary education major. That's what I wanted to do. And she was like, oh, okay, well, there are some classes that intersect. So if you do see something interesting, then you can, have them cross-listed. I was like, okay. And then I was looking at so many interesting classes, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then by the time sophomore year came around, I was practically an Afrikaans major. And then our first time working together was my sophomore year, and I worked with Dr. Ball on the history of housing in Hartford. So I just said that to say that faculty is an amazing part and an integral part to student experiences. And because of meeting Dr. Vernal and becoming an Africana Studies major and getting involved in research, I now have a desire to go to law school to be a real estate attorney, because I want to be that person who does something in which can find a way that can distribute housing equally and ensure equality within housing and equality within public housing as well. So that's my spiel. So I thank everyone.
I would just like
Laura?
to let everybody know Malachi was he was an outstanding student in high school. I believe he graduated #1 in his class.
Laura, oh, sorry, Dr. Bradford. Laura Vidoya?
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Vidoya. I'm a senior at the University of Connecticut. I'm a double major in political science and Latin American studies. I'm also on the MPA fast track, so hopefully I get officially into the program for next fall. But I just want to talk a little bit about me coming into UConn. So I applied to UConn as a psychology major, and within my first 2 weeks, I switched out of psych and I became a political science major. I also did SSS the summer before fall semester started, and I took a class in Latin American studies, and I immediately fell in love, but I wasn't sure how I was gonna be able to do 2 majors. I was the first in my family to go to college. I was still navigating okay, I just switched my major. I'm definitely not gonna go to med school. Now what do I do? So then my sophomore, I got a job at El Instituto my freshman year, and I worked with Dr. Geppeline, and I got to get a little glimpse of what graduate students were doing in research. And then my sophomore year working there, I got the opportunity to work with Dr. Vernal, and it was a really amazing experience. I was really nervous because I was I Google searched who Dr. Vernal was, and I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to work with her? This is I don't even know anything about research, but I keep saying that Dr. Vernal was God sent, because she taught me you need to within research, you need to find your passion, find what you love, and it really becomes your child. And then my junior year, I got the Bold Women's Leadership Network scholarship, and right now I'm developing my own research. And because I'm Colombian American, I decided to do my research on gender equity and political participation in Colombia from a time frame between 2000 and 2020, looking at political parties as the way that more women could be within politics. So yeah, that's my little spiel.
Thank you, Laura. Sydney Gray?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Gray. I'm a second semester junior here at the University of Connecticut, and I major in History and Africana Studies. And I'm also on the Fast Track program, and I'm undecided between either public policy or public administration. And I just wanted to kind of talk about how this research has been kind of transformative in my academic. So I first met Professor Vernal. We were kind of at this talk in Perlac, where they were discussing the curriculum for the new African American Studies and Latin American Studies curriculum that just was instituted into the state of Connecticut. I had heard a lot about Professor Vernal through my history advisor, and she always was telling me, you should go and do research with her. So I finally mustered up the courage to introduce myself. And then from there on, she sent me her research thus far. And I kind of decided, that I wanted to focus on Oh, sorry, I was having some trouble with the mute button. West Indians, and then we kind of narrowed down my topic to West Indian settlement in Hartford in New York. And it was just very transformative in my academic career. I was taught how to use professional writing, how to make ideas succinct, and just beyond that in my personal life. I am a West Indian American. My dad's from Jamaica, my mom's from the Bahamas. And being a part of this school system, I really never learned West Indian history in the form of Africana studies. And through my research, that's what I learned, West Indian history and how it's transformative in America and the impacts that West Indian culture has had, not only in New York and Hartford, but on the world through prominent West Indians and prominent social networks and institutions. And all in all, it just makes me, proud to be a product of West Indian culture, and it has encouraged me to follow my passions in law. I want to represent marginalized communities, specifically like people who are West Indian and Black, and defend them, you know, in systems that they may not know. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Chloe Murphy.
Everyone, I'm Chloe. It's great to see so many familiar faces on this screen. Especially, I just want to quickly shout out Mr. Williams, Lawrence Williams, because I haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Williams. I'm sorry, but he got me my scholarship for a while. And so I'm an Africana Studies major. I declared that major after taking Dr. Savant's intro course my freshman year. And so as soon as I switched my major, Dr. Vernal emailed me and was like, oh, hi, Chloe, I'm your new advisor. Let's meet, which I think is just so indicative of the way that she takes care of her students. She's always on us, and just making sure that we're where we need to be and giving whatever support is needed to make sure that we're where we need to be. So my first time working with Dr. V, outside of her being my advisor and also like my second mom, was applying for my share grant, I think my sophomore year. So that was used to conduct research for the housing exhibit. And it was very personal to me as someone whose grandfather migrated from South Carolina up to Hartford, working on the tobacco fields, all those things. So it was a great opportunity to kind of like as my own family lineage, and be able to present those very intimate stories to others in an academic setting in a very important way. And so in terms of agency and the way that the programming and relationships that Dr. Vernal builds with students, I think it's very important for young people and young people of color, especially, to be able to gain the skill sets as young historians to be able to tell our own stories, right? So things I learned, we learned how to conduct research, we learned grant writing skills, we learned how to conduct oral histories and network and do certain types of writing, and be able to present this information to different sorts of people and at different sorts of events. So that's really important. And as far as like my aspirations, it took me a long time to figure this out, but I want to be a history teacher. And so I think my experiences here with being an Africana Studies student, with having such an important relationship with an advisor who's also a Black woman, really just made me understand that this is very important and history is very important. The way we learn history affects how we understand the world we're living in today, and that affects how we treat each other. So for us to be able to tell our own stories and to inspire other young generations to reclaim their own histories and tell their own stories, I think is very important. So I just want to be able to endow those skills and build those relationships with other young people, so that they can feel empowered to take up their space in the world and share themselves with others.
Thank you, Chloe. And finally, Salima.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Salima Depeister. I'm a senior at the University of Connecticut, and I'm a history major. I first met Dr. Vernal in my sophomore year. I was taking her History of Modern Africa course, and I was really interested because I had never taken a course like that. There aren't that many offered, and I was really excited to learn more about, you know, the diaspora and all these other things that we don't really explore in school. And I also, I remember speaking with my advisor, Heather Parker, who's amazing, always helped me throughout school. And she told me about all the amazing projects that Dr. Vernal was offering. And so after class, I spoke with her, wanted to learn more about the different projects that she's doing. And I eventually became involved in the oral history project that she's conducting now, which is amazing. Before, I had not had a lot of experience with different kinds of history, and oral history, I feel, is much more interactive. It's very engaging. And the internship overall has just inspired me to become even more engaged with history and to expand my knowledge in so many different ways. I've had some prior experience with research, but definitely through this project, Dr. Vernal has inspired me to learn in different ways and just further my education in different ways. And that's why I'm kind of considering a joint JD PhD program, because I've always wanted to go to law school, but I think it would be great to expand my education in a way that I could also teach in the future. So I could become a lawyer, but I could also become a professor in the long run and teach history. History is something that I'm very passionate about, and working with Dr. Vernal has just expanded that. I didn't know I could enjoy history much more than I already do. But yeah, I very much enjoyed learning about oral history and what that looks like. So I'm very grateful to have met Dr. Vernal and experienced this project with her.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Salima. Thank you. Thank you, Malachi, Laura, Sydney, Chloe. I put out a call to about 15 students, and they all wanted to come. They all wanted to come this morning and represent. And just to close out, what I want to say is that when I'm at UConn, I am very aware of who I am in relation to students, and that I represent the entire university. And my job as a professor, I was hoping that you guys didn't think I had taken all of my students and turned them into, people who were working on Christian missions in the 19th century in South Africa, which is my special area of research, but really to have them find something that's personal, relevant, and meaningful, whether they're working with me in the classroom, whether they're meeting me at the admitted students fair, whether for one of my other students, they simply overheard me talking about my exhibition in the mailroom and asked if they could, if that was something that they could join. That was a philosophy major. And so I really want all of us to be aware that our students are watching us, and they're not just watching us in the classroom, right? They are paying attention to how we carry ourselves on campus. They're paying attention to what we say and what we do. And I am really glad that I can be an example at the University of Connecticut of what engaged scholarship and research looks like, but also what individualized and personal advising looks like. And I'm really proud of all of these students here who are going off to be lawyers and teachers, because I think that's the best thing that we can do for our students, is to make sure that at UConn, they have this personal, relevant, and meaningful experience that helps them to figure out who they want to be when they leave us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Vernal. Thank you, Dr. Vernal. Much appreciated. Amanda, can you tell me who's next up on our list?
Julia Yakovich.
All right.
I was hoping I wouldn't have to be the one to follow up that, but I am. So, Dr. Vernal, thank you. That was awesome. I think I speak for everyone in being so excited about your work. And hearing your students actually brings tears to my eyes. So, pardon me for a second. So it's wonderful. I'm Julia Yakovich. I direct service learning for the university. And I've been in this role. I started actually as a second-year master's student in the Department of Public Policy. So some of your students had mentioned that they have interest there. They're on the fast track already. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in that program. It's fantastic. So anyway, started as a grad student. This was my graduate assistantship in 2007. In 2008, I was hired to start building the infrastructure of service learning at what was then the Greater Hartford campus. That was in West Hartford. And there was a handful of faculty who were doing service learning, and they became my first cohort of faculty fellows. And so the fellows program essentially consisted of a year-long training orientation to the pedagogy of service learning. Now, mind you, at that point, I was still trying to wrap my brain around what the heck service learning is, because it's very abstract. Unless you have concrete ideas around it, it's very difficult to figure out how do you do this thing called service learning. So the way that I done service learning for the past 13 years or so was mostly going through faculty to get to the student. There was a strategy that I had to think of that would be able to integrate into the university at large, and going through faculty at that point was the most important piece, so that then they could deliver service learning pedagogy. So I think most of you are probably very familiar with service learning, but if for those of you who may not be as familiar, the method of teaching and learning that integrates self-identified community need and integrates it into a particular class that a faculty member is teaching. And so that can mean so many different things. And when I began my journey with service learning, I realized very quickly that what I needed as a student was service learning. It provides an anchor for students to be able to relate this content of the class, no matter what it may be, and focuses it on a real life community-based project. Now, the other part of my work is working with community partners very deeply to identify the needs that they have, so that then I can attempt to bridge their need with what we can provide as the university. And so our students then become are able to activate themselves as engaged learners. And what that does, and I don't need to tell any of you most likely, is that it changes the whole story for them within that class. They're engaged, they're excited, they're working with community partners. They are learning the content of the course in a completely different way that's absolutely relevant to them all of a sudden. And it makes it exciting for the students. But with service learning, there's more to it. There's critical reflection. And they get to think very deeply about how this project with the community is impacting themselves personally, professionally, and they get to think very critically about what is their place in the world. And there is nothing more important that we can do as the University of Connecticut than to put our students in places of power. And service learning also gives them a voice. So there's all these really important things that connect with me as a person, because I actually struggled very much in school. It was not easy for me, and I know that I'm not alone in that. But so the fact that I was able to really learn and engage in this unique pedagogy was very important to me. I wanted to go over a few projects that I have cultivated over the years that put students at the center. And so one of them, and Chloe is actually part of this minor that I have with, and I see Andy Ballantyne here, is our Sustainable Community Food Systems minor, which is a service learning minor. And it's an immersive experience for students. Our focus is having them get out to our community partners and focus on food and the food system and social justice aspects of that. I haven't mentioned the social justice aspect of service learning, but there's a major component to this pedagogy as well, is that, and we have to be very delicate and gentle with this, but it enables conversations that open up. And so we can have these discussions in our courses that align directly to what the students are doing and seeing in their everyday life now during that course. So the Sustainable Community Food Systems minor is a really great example. We work really hard to get funding so that we can pay our students for the summer, and then they get to go to a community partner of their choice and really immerse themselves into what that community partner is doing and why what they're doing is important, and the students can learn firsthand there. We also have a fog management education program where the students, so that's fats, oils, and grease in the wastewater system, taking a little bit of a turn there. But I work directly with the MDC and another small company called REA, which focuses on biofuel. And so our students essentially run this internship themselves, and I get funding from the MDC to do this program. And so the students run it. And they are incredible. It's just coming back online right now. And it's completely student run. And the work that they accomplish within such short amounts of time is amazing. We're going to be working with restaurants on the proper disposal of their fats, oils, and grease in the wastewater system, and it has to do with public health, and it has to do with the environment, and it has to do with economic development. So all these pieces come together, and I have students from all these different disciplines that are working together, and they get to talk and learn from each other and really focus on what they think to be important for them for their future. I don't want to take up too much more time, but you know, as others were saying, and Dr. Bradford was saying, is that we have all the pieces here. We have everything. We are a leader in this area. We just have to pull all the pieces together. Our students and faculty are doing amazing work. And I look forward to the quilt being sewn together so that we can see it all in one space. And I look, there's so many more things that I could talk to you about, but I know we're pressed for time. So I'm going to stop there, but I look forward to furthering the conversation. Thank you so much.
Julia, I know you were a little worried there. Dr. Vernal is a hard act to follow, but you did fantastic. Thank you so much for that. It's really much appreciated.
Thanks. I also have to say that my father came in right as I was starting, and he loves to rile up my 2-year-old, so they're above my head, like wrestling. And I'm like, oh, so if you heard anything, that was them.
I'd love to be wrestling with my grandson right now, so much appreciate that. Much appreciate that. All right. I do believe Professor Guerra is our next panelist to speak. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone. It's great to be here. I'm gonna share a couple of things with you, and just for the fifth time, I'm gonna you know, I can certainly expand a little bit more once we go into the breakout sessions. I think that it was great that Dr. Vernal started with that activity. You know, because I think that that's precisely that we'll witness a moment of transformation and empowerment of the students. That's what we're trying to do. Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire has guided my approach in the classroom, and also the way in which I approach my films. And I think these are some of the elements that I have no doubt that we all share in here, because I see a lot of heads, you know, just nodding. That those are some of the elements that we aim to use as educators and as human beings as well. So the questions that I try to ask myself constantly: how can we establish a true dialogue between our students? How can we actually how can this dialogue go beyond the classroom? You know, so they can connect when they're brushing their teeth, you know, when in the things that has nothing to do with formal education the way in which we know it, because I think that's when we transcend. How can we create truly meaningful experiences that can transform the act of learning on its own? I think that by listening to some of Dr. Vernal's students right now, these are the little experiences that we have to aim for that are not necessarily covering an academic subject. You know, I think that we all do that on our own time, but having those moments is when you start building that agency that we try to instill in our students. I know that it's not easy during COVID times, but just sending an email, sometimes adding an icon, you know, a smiley face, little things that go a long way. They go farther than when you're actually teaching something. There are two things that I try to use in my classroom, and it's something that I have to keep reminding myself because it's very hard. Listening before telling. I think it's a strategy that I try to incorporate, and I have to remind myself all the time. Being willing to share the power, the way in me as an educator and the one that it's leading the discussion. Again, I'm going to go back to Dr. Vernal because I was very impressed by what happened. That's right there, sharing the power. I have time and I have the power to be the one in front talking, and I'm going to share with my students so they share the same. So it's almost a little case study what we witness here, and I think it's very aligned with what I wanted to share in my presentation here. The second thing that I try to do, the first one is listening before telling, and the second one is acknowledging, just realizing what's happening in front of you. That there's people that even in a virtual environment, the way in which we are right now, there's people behind this binary code that we have in front of us, right? So how can we touch those hearts? How can we have to use different methods? When I'm working with my students, I think that the first thing that I try to do is acknowledge that they have different fonts of knowledge. And when you acknowledge those fonts of knowledge that might not be coming from what we think is like academic or formal learning, we start appreciating something that goes beyond the classroom. I've had the privilege to work with a first generation Latino students, and that's my area of expertise. Because I lived a very similar situation. I moved here to the States. It's going to be 10 years ago now, when I was getting my PhD in North Carolina, and that started guiding my. I'm sorry, that's my 2-year-old, and like I said, the babysitter couldn't make it today, and my wife is working at the hospital, so you might hear a little bit of that. But I have the M&Ms here. So go to the fonts of knowledge. So when I'm working with first generation Latino students, I think that I'm able to connect in a different way. Why? Because sometimes we speak the same language, not all the time, but we share some of those fonts of knowledge, you know? So it doesn't mean that I cannot connect with others, of course you, but you connect with those students that have a similar experience, and you're open to listening to what they have to say. So it has to become personal. You know, a lot of people say that, oh, don't make it personal. Everything is personal. Everything is personal because we're people here, and we're dealing with individuals. So I think that the way in which I try to approach that moment of transformation is when I listen to your story, when I listen to your abuela's story, and I want to hear more about it. Then once I know that you love your abuela, that you love your grandma, then I have an excuse for me to show you how to use a camera, right? And then you're going to start asking me questions. It's not going to be the other way around. Then I'm going to tell you, hey, so we're gonna work on this little project in which you're gonna be making this video tutorial about your abuela's red rice, right? So then that becomes an excuse for me to start giving feedback, and then we start having this dialogue. So the interesting thing is that the primary subject of instruction becomes the secondary one, right? My syllabus is telling me that I need to talk about basic principles of audio and video. But what I'm trying to do in here, I'm making that an excuse. Oh. I'm sorry, can you hear me there? Yes? Okay, I think that it's just my screen that is not working, but if you can hear me, then it's just my own connection. So I said that I was going to keep it brief, so I'm going to go to my next part of the presentation. There were three, with the question that we were asked, there were three things that we talked about: purpose, agency, and identity, right? And I was trying last night to come up with a way of seeing how can we connect all of this. But I think that there's one more element that was not part of the list. And Laura, one of Dr. Vernal's students, mentioned it. It's passion. So I think that's a driving force behind these elements. How can we help students find their passion? Because once they find their passion, then we can instill this purpose in their life, right? Once you have this purpose, then you can start building agency with little victories that are going to happen, you know, things that are going to start building that self-esteem. And it's not until we have several of those little and big ones that you start forming that identity. And identity is something that is going to be changing, and it's something that is going to be invented and reinvented. I'm still trying to forge my own identity, and that's something that keeps changing. So I think that once you're able to have this more philosophical conversation with the student, I think that the learning goes to a different level. The one thing that I'm going to end this with, we were talking about that we were also asked to think about relationship building and mentoring. I think that mentoring is what we do. You know, I think that mentoring as educators is what we do by having a conversation with a student, by exchanging an email. Relationship building, for me, that has to go deeper. It's something that it's not a given. You know, it's if I want your trust, I have to work for it. And if you want my trust, you have to work for it as well. So relationship building, I think that I think that mentoring is what we do, but relationship building, that goes a little bit more. How can I do this? I try to have very critical conversations, and I try to be very open with the feedback that I provide to my students. Sometimes providing feedback is not an easy exercise, you know, and especially when we're producing something, they come here, they show me their video, and they're so excited about their video. And then I start telling them, you know what, you're out of focus, the framing is not right, the story is not good. You're like, whoa, you know. So how do we approach that? Even before we go to the technical part, we have the I'm sorry. Gracias, mi amor. Okay, she's done with the first pack of M&Ms, but I have another one too. I don't know what's going to happen after it. I don't know what's going to happen after the second pack, but we'll see. We'll see.
Oscar, don't worry.
Thank you. So going back to this part about relationship building, we need to dig a little deeper. In my case, I work with Latino students. So one of the things that I do, you know, sometimes we just speak Spanish, or we have bilingual conversations, and it's just like an easy way to connect. And the one thing that I'm going to end this with, and again, I'm quoting Dr. Vernal students. I think it was Chloe, the one who said that she felt represented. We need faculty representing the real demographic changes that are happening in the classroom and nationwide. That's what we need. You know, I think that we all have good intentions and we want to do it, but we need to have people representing us, people representing how we look, how we sound, how we think. And if we don't do that, it's just a bunch of good intentions. So I think that that's something that we need to push for. I know that it's not easy, you know, but if you look at the U.S. Census, by 2042, the white population as we know it it's going to be the minority. So we're a big mix, you know, and my wife, you know, she's a white woman from the mountains of North Carolina, and my daughter, the one that is asking for the M&Ms, she's a beautiful mix between two cultures. So that's what we need, and that's the representation we need, so we can inspire the next generation. And I think we're a good time. I think it's a good time for us to do it, and I appreciate having this type of sessions, because I think that it starts in academia. That's it for me. I'm going to mute myself before we start having something interesting here.
Professor Guerra, thank you so much for that. And you made it. It looks like with one pack of M&Ms, maybe starting on the second, but listening, acknowledging, and then bringing the passion. Those are really wonderful bullet points to live by, and I think it's going to carry us a long way. So thank you so much again. I know we are running a little bit behind, but if it's all right with you all, I think it's just really important that we hear from our panelists, and we will ameliorate the breakout sessions in order, you know, to do what we can. But I think it's just absolutely crucial that we hear, you know, fully from Dr. McGuire and from Professor Zinn. So if that's all right with you all, I think that's how we're going to move forward. The breakouts will just be a little bit shorter, but this is absolutely fantastic, absolutely wonderful. So Dr. McGuire, please. Thank you once again, Professor Guerra.
All right, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here this morning representing undergraduate research and the Office of Undergraduate Research, which is a resource here at UConn for students in every major, every school and college, every campus, to think about how they can enrich their undergraduate experience through participation in research, scholarship, and creative activity. And that really means engagement in the intellectual activity, the practical activity of asking questions, understanding the current state of knowledge, designing projects, collecting and analyzing information, producing new knowledge and new understandings that add to the broader scholarly conversations that are happening. A key part of the work that we do to promote transformational learning is building students' awareness of the breadth of the research and scholarship being pursued at UConn. And that's an endeavor that we partner with many of our fantastic colleagues on this call on. It's also a matter of helping students understand why, what are the benefits of engaging in this kind of learning, like testing out their interests and building a wide range of skills and forging these key deep relationships with mentors and other researchers. For students who are interested in getting involved, the advising approach we take really begins with reflection. And I think this also harkens back to something Professor Vernal said earlier. It's asking students what they're curious about, what they're really excited by, what standout moments of learning and engagement they've had in their past, what their future goals are, and having those things, curiosity, interest, motivation, serve as the compass for looking for opportunities, for searching for prospective mentors. That curiosity, that genuine interest, that motivation is so important and really increases the odds of the experience being transformative. When students engage in these authentic inquiry experiences, we do see a lot of shifts happening around these concepts of identity, agency, and purpose. As students' identities really, as they think about themselves as learners, shifting from collectors or consumers of knowledge to producers of knowledge and knowing in different ways. Students move into a different relationship with failure and with ignorance, because the work of inquiry means swimming in that freezing cold water again and again and just confronting what you don't know and what doesn't work. There's just no avoiding not knowing and things not going right. So how do you get comfortable with that? How do you persist and come back and pivot and change? And if we create inclusive teams that really welcome their members' whole selves, identity becomes an asset in the process of inquiry, which is, I think, something we've heard from all of the students today, as well as from the other panelists. Diverse perspectives and experiences change the questions we can ask, the forms this inquiry can take, the paths that projects will take. And it's so important for those funds of knowledge to be brought in to the process and for students' identities to be seen as assets. A sense of agency really comes from doing authentic, real work, not just exercises or simulations. When students feel like the knowledge they produce matters for real problems, real challenges, and that they're contributing to this broader collective endeavor, that's genuinely empowering. When a student mounts their first solo art exhibition or creates their first short film or maps access to healthy food in their community or develops a new motor winding design, they build confidence and a sense of agency, and their ability to persist and know that they can do these hard things becomes a central part of their identity. That sense of purpose really comes from connection. Genuine connection and care about the topic that they're working on or the problem or the question that's activating and driving this forward, connection to that broader endeavor, and working for the greater good. So questions drive us forward. And the work of undergraduate research is really about finding that connection to questions that not only move an immediate project forward, but can inform a career path, a vocation, partnerships, and relationships. The broader work of our team to promote transformational learning around undergraduate research is really to keep asking the question, what are the supportive conditions that are going to enable more UConn students to engage in research and creative activity? So answers that we have come up with over the years have involved advising and programming, different funding programs targeted at different kinds of projects and different stages of learning, campus events, outreach and partnerships with the incredible colleagues we have in departments and units around campus. And we want to do more in partnership with all of you and in alignment with life-transformative education. As we think about scaling up, we really do need to emphasize new approaches and keep asking ourselves how we can embed authentic inquiry into more courses across the curricula. How can we involve students even earlier in their undergraduate careers so that this can really help shape that trajectory? How can we break down barriers to access for underrepresented students who we know benefit most from these learning experiences, but who do not have equal access to these opportunities? How do we support our mentors and recognize their contributions? And how do we grow participation in ways that are sustainable for faculty and for other mentors? Mentorship is so central to the quality of undergraduate research experiences, and we really can't scale up or move forward without paying close attention to that mentorship side of the equation. So we were also asked to comment on relationship building and mentoring. And what I'd like to do here is share a working definition of excellent mentorship that was developed by a group of our students, our peer research ambassadors, when OUR launched a Mentorship Excellence Awards program a few years back. So we worked with those students to develop a description of what outstanding mentors do. And as new groups of students have worked with this definition to review nominations and make selections every year, it's continued to evolve, but there have always been 7 key tenets. And as I read them, I invite everyone on the call to think about how this connects to your work with students, or if you're a student, your work with your mentors, whether or not that's in a research context. All right, so I will read these, hopefully not too quickly. All right. Outstanding mentors develop a holistic view of their mentees through sustained interaction and efforts to understand students' short-term and long-term goals. Challenge students to take the next steps in their research or creative work, including the presentation of that work in appropriate venues. Support student inquiry by finding ways to make projects possible and guiding students in pursuing projects safely and ethically. Provide constructive feedback that focuses on student learning and enables students to see failures as productive learning opportunities. Work transparently, making their thought process accessible to students and modeling how to grapple with research and creative challenges. Ensure that students develop an understanding of the field and broader impact of the work, the why, along with relevant knowledge and skills, the what and the how. And finally, connect students to resources, opportunities, and contacts on campus and beyond to further students' projects, networks, and professional development. So our students are pretty fantastic scholars of mentorship, among everything else. And I hope that you all hear in those points something I see, which is the applicability of these ideas for all of us who work with students. The idea of working transparently, articulating our logic, talking through our approach to challenge, providing feedback, and what Professor Guerra shared about the challenge of doing that well and how to calibrate that in a way that honors students' work but also helps them move forward and grow. And the importance of showing your care in different ways, of being curious about your students, being challenging, but by balancing that with encouragement, and making those connections and introductions to build students' networks. I did want to note that I've been saying faculty a lot. Mentors are faculty, but not only faculty. Postdocs, grad students, staff, peers can all be research mentors and form these wonderful, generative, interconnected, overlapping communities of mentorship. And I think the last point that I would make before closing is that it's incredibly powerful for our students to see their mentors as learners too. Hierarchy and experience don't go away, but shared endeavor where nobody knows exactly how it's going to turn out or where we're going to end up goes a really long way toward flattening those differences. So learning together side by side, or whatever virtual equivalent of that we're in right now, forms an incredibly strong foundation for the development of mentorship relationships, and is, I think, a great place for us to look for more opportunities to build life-transformative education. Thank you.
Dr. McGuire, thank you so much for that. And thank you as well for keeping us mindful that really everybody at the University of Connecticut, faculty, staff, facility workers, dining hall workers, everybody has the possibility of being a mentor. And I have seen mentors across all of the cohorts on the campus, and we just need to be mindful of that. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All right, Dr. Zinn, Professor Zinn, once again, happy birthday. Welcome. Looking forward to your word.
Thanks, Michael. Today I officially become an old man. It is nice
I told you
to see
about
all
that.
these young people.
I told you about that.
So I'm the last and the one with the longest teeth, I believe, or at least one long tooth. And like Dr. Vernal, I'm going to share my students, but I'm going to do it in pictures instead of voice. And this really started, it was a conversation with Michael that I had that, and I think why he asked me to talk is, LTE, or what we call experiential learning, or when I first started, hands-on experience. This is a culture within animal science. And it's a culture that has gone on not just at UConn, but throughout animal science departments in the country. And we have this advantage. I'm looking out my window because I can have the best view of Horse Barn Hill of anyone on campus, unless you might be in Worth Tower and on the top floor. In animal science, we tend to be very focused, and I'm going to share so you can see. Whoop, I think I'm going to share. See, there's a problem with being old too. But we have a tremendous advantage. Because Horse Barn Hill and our farms are right on campus. So there's no field trip for our students to get this hands-on experience. And in the past, we've seen those same generational differences that others have talked about. The differences is I've probably lived through them. In the past, we gave farm kids the opportunity to come to the university, learn about new techniques in farming. Their family relied on farming for their income. They went home to bring it back to dad and grandpa. Yes, it was very male-oriented. And increase efficiency and production and maybe increase family income. We developed a few scientists along the way, a few teachers and a few veterinarians, but most came to get some brand new experiences with animals that they can bring home. The world has changed a little bit since I was a freshman in college. Now students come from urban and suburban areas with notions of animals based on their cat, dog, fish, an occasional reptile, or a horse. Rarely is it a source of family income, and in fact, it's usually a source of family expense. And now, instead of being 90% male, we are 90% female. We are not white. We actually do represent the diversity at UConn. So our students have changed, but our focus really hasn't. We now take students that love their pets as opposed to students that went home to farm. We help and encourage them to develop passion of their animals and into a profession that becomes their avocation. In the multitude of opportunities, not just in science, not just in veterinary medicine, but in health, in management, in food production, in food safety and animal care. And through class and hands-on experience, we help them learn about biology, care, the value of farm species, companion animals, and a few exotics. We do this in a variety of ways, and it really begins with orientation and goes through graduation and beyond. I tell students, they're animal science students from the time they come into orientation until they choose not to be. That could be in a week, it could be in 40 years. So many of our students come in, we start with orientation, and this is one of the things that we tell them, that there is hands-on experience. And we hope with animals or with products that they haven't worked with before, so they get the opportunity. Whether it is working with swine, and I think she was a little overwhelmed by the number of pigs that came up to her to feed, or whether they're working with the cutting edge technology of our robotics. But we start with orientation to make them feel a part of animal science. I think our faculty, we always have at least one faculty member that participates in orientation at each event. And so they get the understanding that the faculty are invested in their education. We have tons of internship opportunities, traditional, less traditional, sometimes in the US, sometimes in exotic places. I think that these internship opportunities really expand students' opportunities, and we do have 6 paid internships in the summertime at our own farms. And the thing that we really, it's part of our culture, is that there are student-faculty interactions throughout. Most of our laboratories are led by faculty, not just graduate students. The demonstrations are often by faculty, whether it be in the laboratory, whether it be in a surgery class, or whether it be out in the farms. I think that the students really love it when I'm out there showing them how to take a blood sample from an animal. And after doing this for the last 45 years, there's times I still have trouble. And I think it makes them feel a lot more comfortable that somebody with 45 years of experience has trouble when they have trouble on their second time they're trying to take a sample. It makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. It makes it a little bit more real. Although they're worried about me when I get tossed by an animal, I think they feel a whole lot better than when they get tossed by an animal. We participate in study abroad. We encourage our students to participate in study abroad. Yes, it's a cow with a map. It's supposed to be humorous. But our faculty actually lead faculty-led programs. So Dr. Andrew and Dr. Bushmit lead a program to Ireland to focus on One Health. And I brought students to Cuba in a short-term study abroad. And clearly our students also go for semesters to work with animals that we don't really maintain here on campus. And I think that the other thing that we do is we connect students with alums in our careers class. I think many of our students come, they like their animal, they want to be a veterinarian, and they don't have an understanding of the breadth of what our students do. And so in our careers class, we almost bring back 100% of the people that we bring back are alums who have gone on to very, very successful careers. And students learn their stories so that their own story they can continue to develop it. And it really helps that, you know, how a student who just wanted to ride horses when they came to UConn got her master's in physiology and now is a senior scientist at Boehringer Mannheim. How being an undergrad TA for a nutrition class convinced someone to become a high school teacher in ag science. And I think what's also important, and it's a culture, a mission of our department, is that we are present. And it's not just an individual, but as a department, we tend to be present. Even in this online environment, our faculty and our staff are available to the students. Now, I will say, as a department head, it's a little bit easier for me to cheat. This is certainly my personal philosophy and one that I learned as an undergraduate. You know, sorry, it's my birthday and people are calling. Go away. And that's an unknown caller, and I will need to tell them that, in fact, my car does have a warranty on it. So I can cheat because as a department head and the department head for 10 years, it's my job to help mold the philosophy and the mission of the department. And certainly this has been my focus. So to me, it's not teaching versus research. It's not undergrad versus grads. It's about teaching and research. It's about undergraduate and graduate education. It's using research to train and to teach. So I'm going to go to the second part of the prompt, because to me, mentoring and relationship building is all about trust. They have to trust that you will be there for them if they're going to build a relationship. And to me, it's simple stuff. Being on time for an appointment when they're doing it, that they are important during the time they scheduled. Letting them know it's important. I had a student that emailed me a month ago about her mother being sick. All I did was one line took 8 seconds to check up on her at the beginning of the semester. I had a student that fell off a horse not too long ago that had a concussion and actually was out of school for 3 months. Ask her how she did relative to falling off that horse again, not at UConn. So you can have all the intentions in the world, but if you don't have their trust, there's no ability to develop a relationship, and there's really no ability to mentor. So what do I do? And I do this primarily because I think it's fun. I go to 6 to 8 of the orientation sessions every year. When they were in person, it was a little more difficult virtually. They get to know me before they even start the first semester. I also give them a tour of the farms. They should love Horse Barn Hill as much as I do. I teach FYE. I teach 3 sections for freshman students. So for 14 weeks, they have the department head and I have them. And I really get to know them and they really get to know me. And I recommend teaching FYE for everybody. It is a phenomenal experience. And like I said, I get to know 60 of our 80 incoming students every year. I also have peer mentors, so I really get to know them and they get their opportunity to mentor students. And I advise. Again, this to me is the most fun thing. I've had 80 students, even as department head. It's great to build a relationship. It's great to help them build that safety net. Let them go ahead and make those mistakes, but we don't want it to be the end of their career. We want them to learn from those mistakes. And it's really, you get to also not only help them when things aren't great, but you get to cheer them on and be a part of that celebration when things go really well. The safety net and the cheerleader. It's just a great diversity of opportunities to help students. Here's one of my FYE classes. Again, I recommend it. And you get a t-shirt every year. Thanks, Dave. I stay in touch, and I think this is critical. We had an alumni event. My wife is a veterinarian. We went to the AVMA meeting in Denver. We met with a bunch of the UConn students. I had to go to University of Illinois for a meeting. I contacted some of the students. I took them out to breakfast. Stay in touch. They shouldn't disappear the day they graduate, whether it be from undergrad or whether it be from grad school. And that's really my message. I love it. Interacting with students is probably the most important thing that I do in my career relative to my research, which has been pretty successful, the teaching that I do. I am at the University of Connecticut for the students, and I think that what's really nice is that's kind of the mission of our department. So I'll stop there, and probably didn't go too much over, Michael, but there we go.
You did perfectly well, perfectly well. Professor Zinn, thank you so much for that word. There was gems peppered all through that conversation. Yeah, let's give a snap, let's give a clap, unmute, don't be shy for all of our panelists, because this is why we are here. This is why we are here, celebrating the giants.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Staying connected to alumni, mistakes as a learning opportunity. Do not we all want to be in that space? Our colleagues look at our mistakes and say it's a learning opportunity. We should do the same for the students. Absolutely wonderful. So folks, we're going to go ahead and take that 5-minute break, get up and stretch and do what you got to do and come on back.
Actually, I'm going to be the dragon lady and it says no break. No, so here's the thing. You can have a break. Now is the time to have it, because I'm going to tell you what's happening. So if your watch has buzzed and it's time to stand up, do it. Go get your second cup of coffee. All of that's going. Now is the perfect time to do it. That way you've got time to move and stretch before we head into the next thing. I want to make sure we've got time to get people in small group discussions, which is really our plan for the next few minutes. Yeah, no, thank you, Susanna. We're all back in the main group. Tom, can you try talking again? Tom Scheinfeld? I'm not sure if we can hear Tom. No, Amanda told him no. Did Tom leave? Did he leave us? This is one way to get out of having to do the closing activity, right?
I think can you guys hear me now?
No. Here.
Yeah,
yes.
WebEx, my computer does not like WebEx. I don't know what happened, but I'm back. Anyway, if everybody can hear me, that's great. We've got about 7 more minutes before we go, and I just want to give everybody, if there's anyone who wants to make a brief remark before I close with some parting thoughts. Is there anybody have something they're desperate to say? Okay, well that's great. Well, I want to thank all of our speakers today and all of you who joined us. It's really an amazing amazing big group.
I'll just make a comment real quick, Tom.
Great. Okay.
Tom, I think
someone's trying to get in. Please,
I'm gonna say a couple things about the.
I hear intermittent talking.
I think I'm having trouble.
Is Julia trying to say something?
I was.
Yeah,
I might be having trouble.
Try switching your video off, Julia, and then we might get your audio more clearly.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you for that. A lot of the breakout groups seem to be focused a lot around service learning. And so I wanted to say, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to work at the departmental level to get department heads to start thinking about how to integrate service learning into the courses within their department. I do a lot of brainstorming with faculty, and that's one of the favorite parts of my job. So please feel free to reach out. I'm here as a resource to all of you.
Great, thank you, Julia. I was in those conversations about service learning with Julia, and we did have some really great conversations there. Anyone else? Last thought. Fiona.
Tom, I hear all the time about this 70-20-10 designation, you know, like 70% research, 20% teaching, 10% service. And boy, we need a different formula because, yeah, we need a different, we need a different formula because I think we're not going to be able to project this, if that 10% is where we think LTE is. It's not in the 10%, but that formula suggests that, you know, that our own research, how we integrate students into our own research doesn't necessarily appear in that 70-20-10 designation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Fiona. I wanna definitely second that point. I do think the way we incentivize this kind of work in the tenure and promotion process and retention process for faculty and in merit for staff is something that needs to be addressed. I think it's something that we've heard over and over again. And I think our colleagues in the Provost's office are hearing it over and over again as well. So hopefully this can be a forum in which to explore those kinds of changes. Thanks. That's great. I just want to leave us with a brief remark. And I mentioned this in one of my breakout rooms. I have a whole bunch of notes here, which I would love to talk about. I'd love to like talk at you guys for a half an hour, but I only have 2 minutes. So I'm going to leave you with one thought. I hear on a lot of LTE calls and in LTE related meetings, and I heard it today that, you know, we're already doing so much of this stuff. And I think we saw today, like with our speakers, that we are already doing life-transformative education. We're doing amazing work. All of the people on this call are doing that work, but we are not all of the people at the university. And the students that we touch are a great number of students, but they are not all of the students at the university. And in fact, probably there's still a minority of the students are able to be touched by the kind of passion that we've seen here on this call. And so I want us to all go away and encourage us to think about how we can scale this kind of activity so that it reaches all of the students. And the people on this call are already working overtime. So it can't be, you know, honestly, it can't be on you, right? It can't be on Fiona and Oscar and Julia to reach even more students, right? That's not going to work, especially as Fiona says, like that 10% can't get stretched much more than it's already being stretched. So how do we engage the rest of our colleagues, faculty and staff, in doing this work? And how do we get students who we're not reaching into these experiences? And so I encourage everybody to go away, and as you think about this over Friday afternoon and the weekend, if people have ideas for ways that we can scale these kinds of experiences for our students, please let us know. Me, Jen, Michael, Amanda, Sarah, reach out to any of us. We are going to be launching a set of rapid response initiatives, pilot programs, and pilot studies that will try to explore some of these questions. And if you have ideas for those kinds of pilots or inquiries, let us know, because we do need to find ways to make sure all of our students on all of our campuses are getting this kind of experience. Before we go, I just want to, I think you will have all already received, but I want to just mention very quickly, our next event in our series is on April 9th. 9 to 11. I believe that's another Friday, same time. And that event is with Dr. Pam Ettinger, who's the president of Bunker Hill Community College, and she'll be speaking about the kinds of life-transformative experiences that they're offering their, quite diverse student body. So I hope everybody can join us for that. And again, please keep the ideas coming. Jen, Michael, Amanda, anything else to add?
I just have, Tom, if I may, I just have one quick question. I think we've all been very good this morning. When will we be getting our M&Ms?
Yeah, blue and white. Actually, I can tell you that we're getting closer to LTE swag. So there's not necessarily M&Ms coming, but I have seen prototypes of LTE swag. So expect swag at some point, because we know everyone on this call is definitely part of this huge effort. So just a quick thanks to our panelists today. It's so inspiring to students, the students who came. What a perfect way to end the week. And I'm so grateful for everyone who spent the 2 hours with us here this morning. So again, reach out, let us know thoughts, comments. We're really anxious to hear from people and make sure that we're getting all the voices we can into this effort and moving it along. So, all right, happy Friday, happy weekend, everyone.
All right, everyone, take care.
Bye.
Bye.